So our next speaker is Zoe Dodd from the South Riverdale Community Health Centre. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And when you're ready, do we have you on the line?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Thank you, Zoe.
Great. Thank you. So thank you for letting me speak today. So we've tried everything: silence, marches, direct actions, deputations, consultations, screaming, crying, being at your tables. We tie ourselves up in knots trying to get a proper response from all levels of government. We are shouldering a crisis without the support and resources that a public health emergency would offer, and trying to think of how to describe it to you and how it feels right now reminds me of Vito Russo's speech outside the Department of Health in Washington, D.C. in 1988 during the AIDS crisis, when he said, "Living with AIDS is like living through a war, which is happening only for those people who happen to be in the trenches. Every time a shell explodes, you look around and you discover that you've lost more of your friends, but nobody else notices. It isn't happening to them. They're walking the streets as though we weren't living through some sort of nightmare, and only you can hear the screams of the people who are dying and their cries for help. No one seems to be noticing." And this is how it feels in the overdose crisis: people finding dead people in beds, porta potties, doorways, homes, responding to thousands of overdoses, losing loved ones, friends, colleagues, family members. The ripple of death is grim and will take decades for people impacted by this loss to heal. The city has power and tools that we have seen implemented to shift resources around to respond to COVID. And even today, there are no recommendations made directed at what the city could do about the overdose crisis, which has been with us for even longer years. We're abandoned by all levels of government who point fingers at one another, and we are burning out and people are dying, including our colleagues. I'm not going to plead with you. Instead, I'm going to use the rest of my time here for a moment of silence to think about the hundreds of people who have died this year in Toronto. I'm going to use this moment to think about those who I knew who passed and those who didn't. And I'm going to ask you to reflect on what more the city could be doing, to think about all the preventable deaths, and to ask yourselves if you truly believe that you have done enough. So I ask you just to let me use this time for a moment of silence and think about who we've lost.
Thank you, Zoe. I'd ask members of the board to join me in a moment of silence until the conclusion of 3 minutes.
Thank you.